This
is TLV1.
TLV1 radio.
Great mixture.
I like television.
This is still V1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
The Tel Aviv Review with Gilad Halpern.
Hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review, a program dedicated to the word, to the thought and to debate. I am your host, Gilad Halpern. This week's show is a special one because we only have one guest, but it's a very special guest. It's Dr. Fania Oz-Salzberger, a historian at Haifa University and a leading public intellectual here in Israel. She will be talking to us about her new book, Jews and Words, which she co-authored with her father, Amos Oz, the famous Israeli novelist. What could be better than talking about a book about words on a radio program that's dedicated to the word and to the thought and to debate? In any event, stay tuned. We'll be back with Dr. Fania Oz-Salzberger after this musical break. You're listening to the Tel Aviv Review here on TLV1. I am Gilad Halpern, And I'm now delighted to be joined here by Fania Oz-Salzberger, a historian at Haifa University and a prominent public intellectual here in Israel. She's the co-author of the book Jews and Words that was published by Yale University Press, together with her father, the famous Israeli novelist Amos Oz. Hello, Fania, and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review.
Hi, Gilad. Thank you very much. Lovely to be here on Tel Aviv 1.
So the premise of your book of Jews and Words is that words are the building blocks of Jewish identity, because what the Jewish people had throughout most of its existence wasn't any concrete assets like land and political history or etc., but a book, the people of the book, a codex, a collection of texts. Now, this is a topic that has been explored before, and I'm trying to think, what would you say was the main contribution of your book to this debate?
So my co-author and I, that is my father and I, but let's call him co-author in this program.
Yeah, the novelist among us, as you call him in the book.
The novelist among us, me being the historian among us, wrote Jews and Words, offering a couple of fresh angles that we think have not been tackled before. I would say about a dozen, but let me stick to 2 or 3 because our time is short. First of all, this is an Israeli perspective, and indeed an Israeli Chiloni perspective, meaning that we are secular, we are non-Orthodox in every possible sense, and our fascination with the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, with Hebrew literature, with Jewish continuity, and with the kind of nationhood we are talking about, is not a self-evident fascination. Most secular Israelis are not really into it. We insist that this is our legacy, our heritage, and it is ours to create further cultural assets from. This is one fresh angle that we can discuss. The other fresh angle has to do with my own profession. I'm a historian of ideas at the University of Haifa, Faculty of Law, but I do treat ideas, including laws. But I'm also looking at the history of the book and the history of reading. And here we have something unique in Jewish history, especially in pre-modern times, which is unlike any other culture that I know. All cultures depend on words. This is not a big deal. The way the Jews depended on words to keep going as families and as a nation, that is the big deal.
Please elaborate. How exactly is it different from other civilizations, other cultures?
Well, from the dawn of history, every tribe, every extended family, every people or nation relied on parents passing the torch on to the kids, using words, using rituals, using dances, using cooking, you name it, music, of course. But the basic narrative was always a story, and it was always a parent telling the story to the child, the tribal elder telling the story to the children, and so on. In the Jewish case, from very early on, even before we were called Yehudim, Jews, we were still called Ivrim, Hebrews. Another factor crept in to every family dynamic. And that factor was the written text. So it was not only parent, story, child. It was actually parent, book, story, child. Jews had books on their dinner table, on their family table, in the holidays, on Shabbat Eve, from times immemorial. This is unlike any pre-modern culture that we know.
And therefore it's more sustainable, it lasts longer, because it's something that it doesn't go away with a person when they die. It's something that stays as part of the culture for generations.
The books became a Noah's Ark. They were solid. They were magnificent. Even the earliest, the biblical tomes, are absolutely magnificent. In the book we say, my co-author and I, that for us Jews, the books are our pyramids. They are our cathedral. They are our Chinese wall. They stand in the flow of time, and it is very difficult to demolish such cathedral. So a whole nation grew up on a textual basis, even in biblical times, But after the Bible and after the destruction of the temple, second temple, it became the only basis. Books became our Noah's Ark. And we floated, as it were, in our library all the way to modernity.
I want to take you back to what you said before about the centrality of the Bible for you and your father, the authors of this book, meaning that it has a certain Israeli secular aspect to it. You said that most secular Israelis don't even know the Bible or any religious text.
Not quite, because we all learn the Bible at school.
Sure. But they don't maybe associate that much importance to the Bible in their outlook and in the perspective on life. And we'll get to that in a minute, because secularism means a lot more than the focus on maybe the non-religious perspective on religion. But we'll get to that in a minute. I want to ask you whether the fact that the Bible is central for you as Israelis, as secular people, is it because other religious texts are somewhat more important for religious Jews?
Well, let's try to make some order in this complex issue. You see, once upon a time when the first Hebrew-speaking teachers were teaching young people in this country, that was the very beginning of Zionism, way before the State of Israel. And they actually created some pretty good education here, those small schools of Eretz Israel. And the kibbutz school in which I studied had very little budget, no laptops, no iPads, but plenty of inspiration. And Zionism from the very beginning, and that is my kind of Zionism, which was not so much about territory beyond what we could achieve, but it was definitely about reconnecting to the whole tribal, to the whole textual tradition. And Zionism had this wonderful treasure of the Hebrew language, which lay dormant but not fully asleep for about 2,000 years, was woken up by such linguists as Eliezer ben Yehuda. But on the ground, a whole generation of kids start speaking Hebrew, and when they open the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, for the first time after more than 2,000 years, they come across the most fascinating show in town, because it's fresh, like a Pompeii of words, and the landscapes and human landscapes described in biblical books are all around them. They look around, they see Jerusalem, they see Mount Tabor, they see the Sea of Galilee.
But that was a political choice, wasn't it? Just the same, they could have opened Shulchan Aruch if anyone had given it to them.
Zionism was always made, like any other political movements, on a series of political choices, in this case also very strong cultural choices. But of course, coming back to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, also meant that it was the Bible and the Mishnah, rather than the Babylonian Talmud, which took place in Mesopotamia, or Maimonides, Alexandria. It was the Bible that was the most relevant, and kids could relate to it. Also, the Bible gives you the full spectrum of human life: war and peace, men and women, music and dance, food and sex. By the time we came to the post-diasporic, to the Talmudic areas, to the long, almost endless diaspora, all these issues were no longer part of the Jewish textual life. They became intellectualized. Also, far more men than women had access to the text. The biblical times are a wonderful closure for modernity, because in some ways the Bible is more modern, in some ways, more modern than the Talmud or Maimonides. The Bible has active women. We have a whole chapter about vocal active women, from the Bible via the Talmudic and medieval regression, and all the way back up to modernity and assertive femininity. The Bible had every kind of emotion, from poetry to warfare. We can relate to it. It's a whole treasure trove, and having the Hebrew back on the table means that people can, for the first time, relate to the Bible in their native language. So let me just say, Gilad, that it is absolutely different, the way we read the Tanakh at school, from the kind of religious studies they do in all sorts of schools here in Israel and elsewhere.
Today.
Today, in the United States, crazily enough, since we have American listeners, I might as well mention it. Crazily enough, in the U.S., public schools are not allowed to teach the Bible because it's considered to be a religious text. So kids learn Homer, Shakespeare, but not the Bible. Here in Israel, thank goodness, we can learn the Bible in a secular way, and we can appreciate it for what it is, which is utterly magnificent literature, a human creation.
Now I want to go back to this other element of the secular approach, which is when you're secular, you have other elements in your thought that aren't necessarily tribal, in inverted commas, aren't necessarily from your clan, more universalist. How did this affect the writing process of this book, this relationship between the Jewish element and the universalist element?
Well, we can approach the Bible and we can approach the whole spectrum of Jewish textuality without the bias of dogma. And, sadly or happily, without the onus of faith. So we are non-believers. We love it for what it is, which is a human creation. That's why we can appreciate, and we greatly appreciate, the sense of humor that permeates so many kinds of Jewish writings, cinema, literature. We can appreciate the argumentativeness that since Talmudic times, since Abraham and Sarah, not only do they argue against each other and taunt each other, they also argue against God himself and taunt God himself and laugh about him sometimes, and laugh at themselves, laugh at the rabbis. This is the only monotheistic religion in which it is totally allowed to make jokes about everyone, including the Almighty himself. As a secular, I'm more interested in the mechanisms of this culture. I'm fascinated by the sociology of families sitting around a dinner table with a book open on it from about 500 BCE. And everybody having access to the text, including the girls, by the way, including the women. And that's why we've had such a rich output of creativity. We call it textual nationhood. This is not, and this is an Israeli perspective, it is a secular perspective, it is obviously also liberal. No question about it. We are not about clans or tribes or chromosomes. I don't care whether my ancestors were Cossacks or Kuzas, although apparently the Kuza thing has been blown out of proportion. I don't care which genes are running within my veins.
Yeah.
I do care a lot about the books I was brought up
About
with,
the heritage.
and about how to make my own kids shift their gaze from the screen occasionally and open a good book. That's also part of the story for today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, coming from your family, I'm sure that it's very central. I want to ask you about the writing process. I mean, you wrote it together with your father, and part of the treatment of words wasn't just about text, but also about debate and controversy.
Oh, yes.
So that I'm sure was very, very present in the writing process. Yet, at the same time, there is one single narrative of what we thought. I mean, the whole book is presented in the plural form.
Oh, with a few exceptions.
With a few exceptions,
Yeah.
but how did you manage to gloss over the many controversies that I'm sure existed during the writing process?
Well, first of all, let me say something that writers do not usually say about their writing process. This was real fun. It was fun to write. That doesn't often happen. I think with novels, never. It was a book written in loving controversy, about loving controversy. So, and of course about within a part of an intergenerational conversation about intergenerational conversation. So we practiced exactly what this book is saying that helped Jews get on with it for the last 3 millennia. So in practice, if you want to imagine it, there we sit, my dad and I, his home, my home, Arad, Zichron Yaakov, Tel Aviv, cafe, even in a boat in the middle of a lake at one point. We are talking, arguing, talking the way we've done for the last 50-something years, mentioning books, giving opinions, developing each other's ideas, I type away on my laptop and check up almost every reference online on the internet. My dad looks behind my shoulder and says, the internet, it's the end of civilization. oh dear, an electronic book? I hate it. And I say, Dad, the internet is nice. It can be very friendly. It's like the Talmud. It's a labyrinth of meanings. And he says, forget it. I love it when you can hold it and fold the paper and see how far you are in the book and so on. I love it if you can smell it. I said, okay, Dad, you can smell my laptop. And so it goes. And this is only one of the lighter
no, but when you actually had
debates that we actually
a complete disagreement on something.
Then we put it in the book. And
Right.
there were a few. For example, how important is the noun Judaism? In Hebrew, Yahadut. We keep saying Judaism, Yahadut, all the time. Actually, this is an invented word. It's hardly 100-odd years old. It was invented by academics, mainly in German universities, Judaismus. Before that, there was Yiddishkeit, but there was no big Judaism with a big J. And before that, when you asked a person, which people do you belong to? He could say, Ani Yehudi, I'm a Jew. But if he needed a collective noun, he would say, Ani Yisrael, using the term Israel. There was no ism and certainly no Judaism. My dad dislikes this word very much. Judaism, because he thinks that it has been taken over by an ultra-Orthodoxy who regards us, secular or Jews light, as something ignorant and despicable. In many ways, this book argues against ultra-Orthodoxy in its dogmatic or fanaticist turn. Not every ultra-Orthodoxy is like that. But much of what's going on in today's Yahadut in Israel is unfortunately comparable to fanaticism.
Now, again, coming back to secularism, do you think that it's past its prime, that the heydays of secularism are behind us, and now you seculars, I should include myself in it, are waging a losing battle?
Oh, goodness, it all depends how you define the term. Atheism has been around since ancient Greece. And secularism in the modern sense is with us at least since the 17th and the 18th centuries. Atheism, agnosticism, and so on. So it's been around. It's part of the Enlightenment culture. It's part of modernity itself, believe it or not, dear Americans. A lot of the process of modernity, especially in Europe, went hand in glove with secularization. But to be an Israeli secular is a far more heavy-duty affair than to be an atheist elsewhere, because we are carrying a powerful tradition of words even beyond the belief in God. And that's the whole beauty of the Jewish legacy. That's why being Jewish is not just a matter of faith. Many people don't understand it. They say either you are secular or you are religious. If you are Jewish, you have to be religious. No way. I'm a Jew by nation. I'm a Jew by culture. I'm a Jew by verbal legacy, an enormous one. The Bible itself and everything that came after it spans the whole game. From history and philosophy through poetry and sex and recipes and music, you name it. It's all there. It's all there.
Now this stance is perhaps a minority one here in Israel, as you more or less say, and has perhaps can echo more among...
No, Gilad, it's not a minority. It was the majority of the founding spirit and the founding group of Zionist fathers and mothers.
It's increasingly eroding over the years.
Well, it hasn't eroded so quickly. Today, it all depends what questions the pollster will ask. But well over half of Jewish Israelis, and I suspect quite a few Arab Israelis as well, have left behind, or their parents left behind, the belief in God altogether. Many of them are traditional in some ways, lighting the candles or doing this, doing that, fasting on Yom Kippur, perhaps the Seder on Pesach. But all in all, there is still a powerful secular culture in this country, especially in Tel Aviv, but not only in Tel Aviv. And it has so much to draw upon because it was utterly possible for the kibbutzim, where I grew up, to create a whole secular culture using the text and using the songs and inventing new texts and new songs. It was all there.
But perhaps now in the 21st century, Israelis, more than any other Jews in the world, are faced with this choice between either be religious or not religious at all. This maybe the space of secularism is closing. And my question to you is, taking it in a different direction, is this why you chose to write this book in English? Because it could echo more with Jews around the world than Israel? It's quite a curious choice, I have to say, because you and your father are both Hebrew native speakers. I mean, your father is a master of the Hebrew language, and so are you in many ways. And the texts that you tackle are also in Hebrew, so it's quite cumbersome to write about Hebrew vicariously in this way.
Well, it all began with a wonderful academic project run by the Posen Foundation, which is a Posen dedicated to developing the notion of Judaism as a civilization rather than a religion. And I'm part of the academic steering committee. We're bringing out a wonderful series of anthologies of Jewish civilization, all the way from the Garden of Eden until the 21st century, more or less, in 10 large volumes. And our book was initially conceived as a companion, a coffee table companion volume, a small essay putting it all together. That's how the book grew. So it grew as part of an academic project. It's all published by Yale University Press. And that's how we began. After that, the book took its own route. It accompanies the project, this anthology of Jewish civilization. But it also got translated into, so far, about 10 languages. We still have some more coming. Not just French and German and Spanish and Italian and so on, but some such unexpected languages as Polish.
And Hebrew. I mean, it just appeared in Hebrew.
Wait.
Yeah.
Polish and Greek. I find it all very, very touching, very moving in looking at it from the vantage points of Jewish history.
Exactly, it's historic justice.
As to the Hebrew, it was absolutely clear that the book will come out in Hebrew, and the wonderful Boria Ben Baruch created the Hebrew translation. Then we went over it, adding, because we couldn't resist adding about 20% extra. So if you read the book in Hebrew, you get some extras. For example, the wonderful analysis of the tiny, tiny piece of writing found just recently in Khirbat Kayafe, in Emek HaElah, in the south of Israel, which is a tiny, maybe 10-word or 20-word synopsis of Jewish social and economic justice. The oldest Hebrew writing not in the Hebrew script, but in the Hebrew language, dating from before King Solomon. The amazing thing is that this tiny acrosticon, this tiny piece of writing on clay, relates directly to the social protest movement that was launched here in Tel Aviv 3 summers ago. So if you want a textual continuity, which is not just about words, but also about justice,
there you have it.
And activism, there you have it. So this kind of thing we put into the Hebrew edition. It's not in the English. It was great fun creating the Hebrew. And yes, this book attempts to challenge and address Israelis, both secular and religion, both Jews and Arabs, Jews around the world, and non-Jews around the world. I will be going to Antwerp in 10 days to give a big opening lecture to a conference on religious textualities. And in that opening lecture, I plan to say that the Jewish technique of cultural survival, that is teaching your kids at a tiny early age to read books, to love books, and to argue about books freely. This Jewish technique of survival, which worked quite well for us, is now on offer by us as a universal proposal for every culture and every family worried about the kids and what they might remember and take from their parents' legacy. So everybody can do it if you catch them early enough.
Yeah.
Let's talk about parenting. Textual parenting.
Absolutely.
If you catch them early enough. By the way, my dad hates the computer. I love the computer.
Yeah.
It can also be online if you like. But basically, if you catch them at 3, which is the ripe old age of Jewish boys to go to the cheder, to the traditional school, and start making them love books. They will love books, Gilad, all their life, online and offline,
yes.
electronically or otherwise.
And on this note, Fania Oz-Salzberger, I feel like I could be having this conversation for the rest of my life, but we've sadly run out of time. So thank you very much for coming in for this really fascinating conversation about Jews and words and beyond. The book was published by Yale University Press in English, but like you said, in many, many other languages it has and will come out.
By Keter in Hebrew.
By Keter in Hebrew, yes, indeed. Fania Oz-Salzberger, thank you very much for coming in.
A great pleasure, textual pleasure,
Textual
Gilad.
pleasure, indeed.
All the best.
כל אחד לפעמים שורק בחושך, זה נעים, זה תמיד לשרוק בחושך. גם אני לעצמי, גם אחר במקומי.
כל אחד קצת פוחד לבד בחושך, כל אחד קצת בודד בתוך החושך. שום דבר באמת, רק טיפה לא שקט. תכף זה יעבור, תכף ידליק אור. מחשבות לא טובות באות בחושך, לא מרפות, לא עוזבות אותך בחושך. על רוחות ושדים ודברים מפחידים. תכף זה יעבור, תכף ידליק אור.
גם אני
לעצמי,
גם אתה על רוחות
ושדים
מפחידים. תכף זה יעבור, תכף ידליק אור. נה 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 נה.
This was the Tel Aviv Review for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Also, big thanks to Tammy Goldenberg, the technical producer of this show. I am Gilad Halpern, signing off now. Please do follow us on Facebook and Twitter and send in your comments and suggestions to me, Gilad, Gilad, at tlv1.fm. I'm looking forward to be joined by you again next week for another edition of the Tel Aviv Review, and until then, goodbye.
Dressed it up with love across the 7 seas to you. Oh, will it be enough? And I will be a rainbow. Oh, now your storm is gone. And I will bring the song for you. And I will carry on. Stars in the sky above, I will bring their beauty home, the colors of my love, and I will be a rainbow. Now your storm is gone, and I will bring my song to you, and I will carry on. But the voice of complaining, my hands shall not tremble, my feet shall not falter, the void shall not weary, the fear shall not alter. It's rainbow, oh, it's rainbow. Oh, can you see the eyes of lovers? Pocket full of hearts, a world that's filled with love, a love that carries all before, the passion in the flood. I lie beneath the rainbow, now your tears have gone, and I will sing my song for you, and I will carry on.